So, can you tell me a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and about your company, maybe?
Right. So my name is Bharathan Prahalad. People call me Prahalad or BP. Um, uh, I have around 2+ decades, close to maybe towards the end of my second decade in HR. Um, I'm basically from the southern state of Kerala. My roots are in Kerala. My grandfather he settled in Chennai. So I was, my parents, my mom was educated in Chennai, and then I was born in Coimbatore when she was posted there as a doctor, government doctor, and then I was brought to Chennai as a kid. Um, um, just even before I was like 5 months old, and then my entire life has been in Chennai. I studied in Chennai. I grew up in Chennai. Uh, Big fan of cricket, like most Indians, but also started playing league cricket, which took my eyes off education in my during my college. So um, I'm kind of I was a rebel at home when I was young. Uh, I should say that I'm not very different now.
What do you mean by rebel? Like, what were you doing exactly?
Yeah, so basically, I always like to challenge existing thought processes from a logical perspective, right?
Hmm.
I don't like to accept things just because somebody did it yesterday, that we have to do it again today. I'm come from that thought process that I question everything. I don't know where I got it from, but that is how I am made. And it gave a lot of heartache for my mother, because my dad I lost pretty early, in my life. 2 days before my 12th public exams, I had to do the last rites and then go and write the exam. But truth be told, it was very painful for my mom, because she wanted a very scripted kind of life for me, which was
Hmm.
to be meaning an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. She had no idea of what was HR and all of that. And for me, my first boss was Krishnamachari Srikanth, former India captain, cricket captain. So I was given the opportunity to be an intern with him in his. He used to have a trading organization. So it was very early, I think early 90s. Um, uh, just the 90s broke, I kind of was an intern with him for a few months, and then I worked with Dr. Basant Raj's consulting firm. Dr. Basant Raj is very well known in management circles, founder of the ICFAI Business School. Um, and also on the board of Speak and many other reputed organizations. He is no longer alive, and so uh, learned business process reengineering from him, and wrote. But life was not very smooth, Shrey, to be very honest.
So, how did you pick yourself back up after the losses, and your mom is also not sure about what you are doing? So, how did you navigate through all of that?
That was not so difficult actually for me,
Okay.
because that was me being me, right? It was very natural. But what was difficult for me was my mom had an attack, and I actually wanted to do a career in fashion designing. My heart was there at that time, when I was young, and when I was interning with Chris Srikanth that time, right? So apparently, somewhere, she had an attack, and I thought I should give it back. She give back to her. What she has done for me. She is the cornerstone, right? I'm a single kid, and she sacrificed so much. So I decided I will marry early, and it was a very serious thought. I wanted to look for a person who wanted to be a homemaker rather than pick someone and force them to be a homemaker. So so I was lucky to find my soulmate at that point of time. Um, though at that time I would have never thought it would lasted this long, right? So sometimes life is kind to you. Uh, what you call in Hindi kismat,
Ah.
right? So yeah, it's kind to you, and it has been kind to me that way. I found a great partner for life, and then Um, but the first 3 4 years was very rough because nobody knew me in HR. I was trying to get a job because Dr. Basandraj told me I was good in HR. So it was very rough goings. And somewhere around 98, I enrolled to the Madras School of Social Work. I met a bunch of great people there who are now my friends who head HR for many other companies. But at that point of time, it was tough. So before that time, around that time when I joined, I was in between lot of jobs. I've done all odd jobs. Uh, so I've never had a easy day,
Yeah.
uh, until I joined DSQ Software in 1998. So, I used to run an aquarium on the side just to keep things going. I used to take my cycle and pedal 30 kilometers to buy fish for my aquarium because I couldn't put petrol for my Yamaha RX 100. So I went through the grind, and then after that, the affair with HR started. Predominantly starting from talent acquisition. Burnt the midnight oil because those days Naukri was not what Naukri is today. It was a free tool with 7 resumes in it.
7.
Yeah, just 7, and it was free, right? And
Okay.
resumes won't be like how it's today. It was just one paragraph, the entire resume. So you had to do a control C and control V, put it in Word doc, and then put enter, 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 and create a resume. When you call the phone, the punch phone, right? You had mobile phones had not yet come in, so you'd call and then you'd speak to people. Then you create your database, stand next to the printer all night, uh, develop your network. So that is how I grew, right? And then made a name for myself in TA talent acquisition in the first 3 4 years. Grew quickly, went to TechM, which was Satyam Computers in those days, and then
Mm.
grew from there. I had completed my MSSW on the way between 98 and 2000. And then, had a stint in the US, worked for companies like CG Maersk, heading HR for them at a very young age. So I was very lucky to get that.
How old were you at that time
I
when you
was
were engaged?
30. It was a small tech conglomerate between Compton Greaves and the Maersk Shipping Group. So Compton Greaves was headed by Gautam Thapar at that time, and Maersk, of course, by uh, you know the Musk Group, and we had a Danish CEO, and taught me a lot of things. Um, I had to do some of the tough things that we do in HR today, is letting go of people for business reasons, and all of that happened at uh, that learning came to me from through CG Musk, and then from there I moved on. Um, uh, a few companies. I landed with Polaris uh, software, and then moved to Standard Chartered Technology Division, Scope International. At Scope International, I could spend decent time, did a lot of things, transforming their technology division. Took it from uh, 200, 300 people to 1,500.
In how long?
um, to 3,500 actually. So took it to 1,005 in around 1,005 to 3 and 3,000. I really don't remember, but all of this was done in 18 months. So we were working almost
Wow.
every weekend. But that was a crazy time. Everybody in my team would do recruitment, including my facilities people. We call admin today, right? They all became recruitment experts. So
That's
that was a great time. Then I took a new role there only for the next 13 14 months. I was handling an HR business partnering role. Given the onus to cut attrition, worked on a Six Sigma project to reduce attrition by half. Managed to do that. I did a lot of engagement activities for folks. So, but more fortunate, beyond all of those, what you generally called achievements and all that, the real achievement was I real achievement through fortune, I would say. Good fortune is, I was working with a great team all along. So if you go back, I think I've been very fortunate to have great bosses and great teams.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
what
what I
comes down
keep
to
telling
at
people.
the end of the day. It's the people, like it's the people that make the job good, not
Absolutely,
the actual work.
absolutely, absolutely.
So,
So I keep
you
telling
men-
people there are two people who kind of, who decide your life, and you can't choose who they are, right? Two sets of people. One is your parents, right? Depends on who your parents are, your first 15, 16 years is set, mostly,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then it's your boss. Very few people get to choose who their boss is, and yeah, so you can leave a boss, but choosing a boss, that's difficult. So yeah.
you mentioned in the early days you were struggling a lot as a young HR. What would you say to the HRs freshly graduating today? What advice would you give them to break out of that period where they're struggling to find a job, or how do they make a name for themselves as fast as possible?
I yeah, my advice would be for them to look inside rather than outside. Yeah,
Could you explain?
not sounding philosophical or meditative, but being very true to themselves, is because everybody brings something very unique to the table, and unfortunately, they get lost in being templatized. Uh,
Hmm.
like I said, going back to this conversation earlier in this conversation, when you were asking me, right, uh, uh, why do you think you're a rebel? And I think that is because I don't like templatization. I hate templatization, right? Saying you got to be like this because somebody's
It's
like
the
that.
way it's done. Yeah.
Yes. Company policies, yes, you have to be that way. It's like the Constitution of India. You've got to be within the Constitution to be within the law. Period. Right?
Hmm.
It's a pure black and white thing. It's like a military code. But apart from that, what you bring to the table, how you bring to the table, that cannot be templatized, right? And unfortunately, when you go through a linear, pathway in college, school, and then suddenly when you look outside at corporate, you think you want to be uh, you know templatized. It's better that way. This is how they go. This is how they do this,
Yeah.
right? People. But I'm happy for the kids these days because I get along really well with the millennials, the Gen Ys, the Gen Zs, whatever, right? And that is because I see in them that there is this passion to break free, right? Break free, question status quo, which is awesome. And I think that is going to become a very, very important thing in the days to come with AI taking over almost every rudimentary task. We will be asked to go into the depths of the strengths of the Indian DNA. The strength of the Indian DNA is, our ability to think. We created the best things in the world. India was the greatest economy before the British even found there was a place called,
Hmm. Correct.
right?
Correct.
And that was because of our thought leadership. Whether it be mathematics, whether it was in making silk, whether it was in making the best products around, trading, anything, right? Uh, Maybe we made a mistake in not making, guns to defend ourselves, and we were so passionate about the
The
science of,
swords. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I think we would be pushed to that, to go back to that roots of our thought leadership and excellence through thought, and that is what we are basically. And so I am so happy seeing that in the millennials today. I think that is a great thing because they don't want to be templatized. And I think a lot of noise that is coming out saying, "Hey, you can't manage a millennial." People are finding it
What do you
difficult.
have to say on all that? Like the young people are difficult to manage and difficult to work with and all. What do you have to say on
I think it's a huge bunch of bullshit.
that?
Uh,
Okay.
to be very honest, being brutally honest here, because it's basically trying to take a round peg and put it in a square hole, or vice versa, right?
Mm.
It's because people, leaders out there, they've been templatized over a period of time, so they are not able to understand this crowd, and just because they don't want to understand them. Second is they want to say, just because I'm senior to you, right? I've been here and done that. I want you to be doing that the same way that I did it, which is, I think, criminal,
Hmm.
right? It's absolutely criminal, right? So it's very easy to manage millennials. They are not coming to you for money. Yes, money is little bit is required, but not to the extent that we used to do in our generation, right? Their approach towards money is very different. It is more like, yeah, uh, to a means kind of thing, right? I need a
Hmm.
little money, but what they're really bothered about is, will you give me a white paper, right? Will you give me the space to create something? Am I part of your creative, process
Am I
as an
important?
organization? Are my views important? Absolutely, Shrey. Right?
Yeah.
I think that is being missed out. And people who saying, you spend 2 years here and then 3 years here and then 4 years there, right? And all that. By the time they've lost their the real interest to kind of contribute, right? And then of course, the cultural thing that comes with all of this, right? The
Agree.
millennials really don't understand hierarchy. They don't give a damn for hierarchy, right? And so for me, that is great, right? Hierarchy should be there only for approving leave, yeah, approving purchases
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Because then you're taking a financial decision for which you need a little bit more line of sight,
Hmm.
right? Hierarchy can't be there to say you can't do this, I can't do that. Somebody's got a great idea. You shouldn't even put a process for them for approval.
Hmm.
I think that's where the challenge for leadership is going to be in the coming years, is how do you break silos, organizational silos, bureaucratic silos in organizations, to say, I've got pockets of teams who are empowered to create stuff, right, and showcase them too, right, and
But that leads into your kind of expertise, which is culture, like creating culture. This is a culture essentially that you've created where people are free to explore ideas, etc., etc., and the leadership allows that to happen. So, uh, I had a question which I had written for you, which was, okay, culture allows freedom, but in emergency situations where like raw performance is needed, like we have to get this done, how do you balance culture and the freedom that it brings versus the performance requirements or the actual work that needs to be done? What do you have to say on that?
no, I think this drives performance. I'm saying, don't shy away from the purpose or the goal. The
Okay.
millennials or others, they are very purpose oriented folks, right? They get driven by purpose.
Hmm.
So, unfortunately, that is where people miss the, trees for the forest and the forest for the trees, right? They think because a millennial is like this, they don't have a purpose, right?
Okay. 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 Okay.
So they come with that urge to create, but it's the duty of the organization to show the purpose.
Hmm.
But it is not the duty of the organization to say, this is how you do it. If you say how to do it, you kill the entire life out of a millennial,
So, how does an organization do that though? Like if they
right?
want to.
So you've got to actually, give some basic framework,
Okay.
right? I think people love frameworks, right? People love platforms, but they really don't want to be said, do it only like this, right? And when that happens, it's going to be a real challenge, to manage them. I don't think a challenge. I think you'll fail miserably, right? Because you've taken the heart out of an individual. There is nothing more pathetic than that, right? There is no prosthetic for a broken spirit. I'm robbing the lines of Al Pacino from the scent of a woman, the final scene, right? There is no prosthetic for a broken spirit.
Hmm.
And I don't know whether we'll have a tool in the future that measures how many broken spirits are there in the team. You might have physical bodies coming in, going out, but when the spirit is elevated and it's inspired, then you can create an exponential result,
I think
which
in India, because of the education, the spirit is killed before the guy even joins the company.
I don't know. Depends on the company also.
Yeah, yeah,
Depends on the people. I don't want to mention names and stuff like that, because if
yeah.
I mention some names, I will leave out some names, and then
Correct.
that will lead to things saying that, hey, why BP you missed out, or why did you?
Yeah.
But yeah, all of us are in this together. I've realized this sooner than others would, and I only hope others would realize this faster, because there is a huge potential for us to be tapped. Imagine the population of India. We are looking at a population for the next 30 years that is going to be the youngest population in the world.
Hmm.
For the next 30 years, nobody can challenge us. That's the data, right? That's what the data is telling us.
Okay. Now,
Now, how do you channelize this huge energy?
okay. So is that culture thing, is that the responsibility of the leader that I'm enforcing this, not enforcing, enforcing is the wrong word. Am I motivating this culture to happen, or is it up to the individual himself or herself that I want to not get bound by the organization and their rules? Let me try to be as free as I can, or let me show my creativity and all. So whose responsibility is it?
Definitely the responsibility of the organization and the culture there. I think the quality of the leaders will determine that. Sometimes people put too much of emphasis on HR, and I think HR has some magic wand to create a culture. HR only has a,
Hmm.
you know, the facilitator, right? The big facilitator around here. It's also the responsibility of every individual, right? That is why I agree to do this podcast. So the more people see it, the more influence it will create, right?
Yeah.
Because every individual, every leader, and I say leader, it's a person who might even lead two, three members, right? And it's got an infectious effect. Good things are very infectious, right? When people see that, immediately, just like a movie, right? You see a good movie,
Yeah.
very rarely do you keep your mouth shut, right? You kind of, in your own way, even the most introverted person will have five people to talk to. They will say it was a nice movie, it was a great movie, right? So when you have, when it influences leaders in the right way, automatically it kind of promulgates.
Can you give an example of such a leader? What are their characteristics? Like, if you could give an example.
I'd go back straight to Alexander the Great, my favorite leader, right? You imagine a guy who was living 350 years before Jesus Christ was born.
Hmm.
Okay, he took a bunch of people, small bunch compared to all the armies at that time. His army was the smallest in size compared to the large armies, compared to
Correct.
anybody he was wanting to, have a war against, or planning to conquer, right? And imagine this was only 20% of that were on horseback.
Only
Okay.
20%.
Only 20 to 25% were on horseback. The remaining had to actually walk. They walked all the way from Macedonia all the way up till India without a defeat, right? And what was super awesome about the entire thing was, uh, he would actually, after a conquest, he would ask the conquered army, the folks there, saying, hey, would you like to join us? Now, this is a series of M&As happening. It's a series of merger and acquisitions happening. Yes, blood was
Hmm.
spilled. Unlike in today's world. In today's world, we will say blood was spilled in a different way. We let go of people and all of that.
Yeah.
But it's still not. It's still not as bad as it was in those days. But I'm saying, to be so progressive in barbaric times, right? And so the word I'd want to use there is progressive when you describe Alexander. You need to have tremendous amount of confidence in yourself to say, I'm okay, you can come and join, right? He never thought saying that you would come and pollute my army with your culture. He was so super confident that this culture would change you,
Hmm.
right?
So
Um,
it's the uh, you can say character of the leader that is so infectious that it just transfers to everybody in their team.
yeah. So two, three things to take away from there, right? You can read the book of Strategies of Alexander the Great by Partha Bose. Partha Bose is one of our own authors, right? It's a small book, not a really big book. It's a great book too. And there are many books on Alexander the Great by Christian Cameron, by Philip Freeman, brilliant books. But that's the journey, right? When you go through that, you are Alexander the Great is telling you two, three things about himself. One is he's supremely confident about the culture he has built. One. Second, what he is telling you also is that he is supremely democratic. You want, you come and join. I'm not going to penalize you, right? At an age where you just cut heads and we keep moving on, right? And all of that, right? And then he would also look into the culture of the conquered enemy, and some of the good parts he would ask his own army to adopt, which is very difficult to do. As a leader, you can convince somebody to do that. I think if anybody wants to have a playbook on M&A, you go back to Alexander the Great and do that. I think some of our own kings are very good in doing that. You take Harshavardhan, Shivaji Maharaj, and then Rajaraja Chola is amazing. Rajaraja Chola just conquered all of Asia, right? And why I take the name of kings basically is it's not easy, because on one side you have to conquer and expand, on the other side you have to be seen as humane and liberal,
Hmm.
right? It's
That's
very
completely.
difficult thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's why Akbar the Great. Akbar is called, Akbar means in Urdu it means great. So when you say Akbar the Great, it's great the great. Not many people know that, right? So Akbar is called great basically because of that, and same with Rajaraja Chola or Shivaji Maharaj or Chhatrapati Shivaji, and of course Harshavardhan, Ashoka. We have our own leaders. But, when you go to the West, there's one name I'd like to pick was definitely Alexander the Great, because he had this system thing, and then able to motivate his people, take them to places where nobody else had ever gone. It was truly a Star Trek journey for those guys.
Hmm.
Um, I remember that tagline from Star Trek: "To go where no man has ever gone," types, right? Right? And then also, keep them motivated along such a long journey, right? Average tenure was around 10 years, 13 years in that army. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. That's some of the things.
So we're on the topic of leadership, and let's say somebody's watching this, they're not in a leadership position yet, but they want to be. What does it take? Like from the perspective of a leader, what do they have to endure on a personal level?
I think what they have to endure is they have to first be of service to people. They have to actually work under a leader,
Okay.
right? And I think that's the key thing, right? You have to be on the ground, not leading people to start with, but actually doing something of value, learning from different kinds of leaders, and not rush into the thing that I need to become a leader, but you will grow into it.
Hmm.
And I think it's an acquired taste, like people call, right? It's not something very templatized, saying, you go to an IIM, I go this, and then I spend 3 years, I'm a leader. There's no way you're going to do that, right? But you learn, and the process of learning is not, you don't only learn from leaders, you also learn from the lady or the guy who sweeps the floor, cleans the table at office. So much you learn from them, right? How well they do their job, what inspires them, why do they come to work, what is their purpose, motive in life. Every small bits and piece that you learn over the process, cultivates your appreciation of the overall homogeneous group. And then you kind of, the confidence slowly steps in, saying, "Yeah, let me try this out. I
Is
think
it
I can."
is it
Yeah,
difficult?
it is very difficult. Leadership is a lonely job. It's a very
Can you
lonely.
tell me about yourself? Like, obviously, you are a leader. You were just saying this morning you have to send like many emails and all. So that may be simple, but from your perspective, like, what do your teammates not know about you, about like how you lead them essentially?
I think I'm pretty off the cuff, very transparent guy.
Okay.
They know mostly everything about me because I let that happen. Um, they know that I love my pets. I think the personal side is very important, right?
Hmm.
You can't have a very, protective personal layer, too protective, rather, right? There are so many things that are very personal to us, we'll never share. That's always there with everybody. But I think it's also about sharing how vulnerable we are, right? And my team knows that I am very vulnerable in so many areas, and I think it's very important for leaders to, uh, to gain, uh, you know, uh, the trust of your team just by saying, "I am as human as you are," right? Because that's all they want, right? Team members, don't want to be constantly kind of looking at Captain America kind of a character saying, right? But it is just saying that, the vision, do we have a, purpose together as a team,
Hmm.
right? For me, that is very important, right? The other thing, for me as a leader is, how do you actually stitch everything together? Okay, and how do you keep communicating constantly, saying this is what we want to do as a team, right? The mission part of it, regularly calibrating it and being ruthlessly honest, actually,
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
not penalizing people for being honest, but actually kind of rewarding them for being honest, right? Because when people lose fear, Shrey, I'll tell you, wonderful things happen.
When people lose fear,
Correct. Right. See, most of the time, people have the fear of being judged. People have the fear of, what if I try this and it doesn't happen?
but
I'm going to look.
but what if like they just become shameless, like start doing anything?
Shameless is when, somebody shirks their duty,
Okay, okay, okay.
right? Somebody says, I know I am supposed to do this, I did not do this. That is shameless.
But do you know why people have fear? Because they're afraid to make decisions. Because if you make decisions, suddenly you are accountable for everything that you do. That's why it's difficult to be a leader essentially, because you are the one taking the risk of judgment in case things go wrong. So I think that's why people have fear. It's that they don't want, they're not confident enough in themselves to make a decision. Is that true? Or
Yes, very true. It's a nice point you made. Lovely point. I think that comes from uncertainty.
hmm.
A lot of people think that, fear comes because people don't have courage.
Yeah,
That's a very stupid thought, right?
yeah.
Comes from Collins Dictionary. And most of the times, you take a word and then you go to the antonym of it or the synonym of it. That's not how thought is done, right? Fear stems only from uncertainty. You're
Hmm.
not sure what's going to happen, you're afraid,
Correct.
right?
So how do you, as a company, remove that then? Why
And
is there no rules?
I have no idea. Anybody watching? I have no
Yeah,
idea.
never mind, never
I
mind.
thought you triggered some
No, I
balloons.
didn't do anything.
I am not even touching my, laptop. It's interesting. Uh, I think I inspired the MacBook. So yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah, so how do you instill that culture where people are, they are uncertain, uncertainty won't go away, but they're still not afraid of taking that risk of being, of putting themselves on the spotlight.
It's a process.
Hmm.
Yeah, honest. It's a process. It takes time. I think it happens over time. You have to see, when people fail, people see how you stand beside them, and they fail big. If you stand beside them, pat them on the back, they lose fear,
Hmm.
right? Uh, when they fail small and you frown and you say, I didn't expect this from you, they understand. So it's the constant, like I said, it's the constant communication. So they're always looking at your own behavior as a leader. What are you applauding, right? What are you saying? Hey, this is shit, right? This is not what I expected, right? And then they see, hey, okay, this is what is being rewarded over it. I'll tell you an example. One of my previous organizations I was doing in KL, I think, we were at Taiwan, and I was handling 6 or 7 countries at the time. It was a travel job, and uh, multi-location, meaning I was located in Singapore but traveling. And then somebody said in Taiwan, they said values people are not practicing properly. So let's have a complete, session workshop on values. I said, yeah, it'll be nice. Everybody will understand that, and we'll have good food and all of that. And how long do you think that memory will stay with them?
Not.
And I said it's important. I'm not saying you should not do it, but I said, what problem are we trying to fix? Are we trying to, solve the symptom or the problem? And so that's why I love, the engineering fishbone, 7-step problem solving, right? So you go one by one. And then I said, if you are not on the floor having a practice when somebody lives a value, tap them on the back, right? And say, hey, it's amazing you did this, and let the entire team stand up and start clapping, right? In the moment, of course, you can give a values award later, but in the moment when you do that, it's the monkey thing, right? You know the monkey story. One monkey puts the cap down, all the monkeys will put,
Mm,
right? And human beings are like monkeys, and we are all like that. See, when we see something good, we like to adopt.
correct.
That's a very monkey thing, right? And so it's very important for us to understand that some of it processes are important, but what's more important is behavior.
Mm,
What behaviors are we rewarding? What behaviors are we encouraging? And we got to do it in the open. And so when that happens, people lose fear. People quickly gravitate towards and align very nicely and say, hey, in this place, this is what is being recognized.
nice. So yeah, I guess you gotta go now. It's 10:40. You said you're busy after that. So it was solid talking to you. Lots to learn. If you have any books that are on this topic that you would like to suggest, if you are into books as such.
Yes, yes, I am. There is a book about Johnny Ive. Johnny Ive was the chief designer at Apple.
Hmm.
Lily retired after the death of Steve Jobs.
Hmm.
He was there for a few years after Steve Jobs passed away. So there's a book on Johnny Ive. It's an amazing book. He talks about his journey of how he created all the Apple products with Steve Jobs as his partner. So it's
Okay.
amazing. Why I say that's amazing is that's like something like a real time. You see the real struggle, the passion of a creator, right? That is one thing. Of course, the book on Steve Jobs is great. All the books I talked about, Alexander the Great, by Philip Freeman, by Christian Cameron, by Partha Bose, all of that are amazing books. The other books that I like is Good to Great. Most of the people in my generation would have read it. In your generation, I am not sure, so you can try that. By Jim Collins, it's a fantastic book. It talks about level 5 leadership,
Okay.
right? Level 5 leadership is ultimate level. It talks about personal humility and professional will. When both
Hmm.
come together, great things can happen. Like the Lee Kuan Yew story in Singapore, right? The book about Lee Kuan Yew, his video is very inspiring. So that one can watch. All of this are stuff where people thought nothing could happen, and they converted something really bad to something really great, right? These are all the impossible stories, right? Uh, Shoe Dog is
Hmm.
the Nike story.
Yep.
That's an inspiring one. So yeah, I keep looking for inspiration in daily life too. So yeah,
Done. 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 Thanks. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Anytime. I think thanks to you, Shrey, for the opportunity. I think
Arey, I haven't given you any opportunity. You have given me the opportunity.
no, no. I think the fact that you felt comfortable reaching out to me and thing is awesome. I think we need to see more of this.